He died on October 7th, 1849 in Baltimore at the age of 40. Now, the exact cause of his death is unknown, although it has been attributed to alcohol, brain congestion, cholera, drugs, heart disease, rabies, tuberculosis, a few other diseases, and even suicide. They found his body in the gutter. He was quite penniless. He had no family, no friends. And yet, after death, his name lived on to become synonymous with universally admired tales of mystery and the macabre. In fact, he was one of the earliest short story writers in America, and he is considered the inventor of detective fiction. He also greatly contributed to the emerging genre of science fiction. Now, do you know that he was the first American writer to try to earn a living from his craft? Yes. But for varying reasons, he had a financially difficult life and career. To complicate matters, he married his 13-year-old cousin. She died 2 years later. He never got over it. Some called him a madman, an outcast. His adoptive father had disowned him years before his death. And yet to this day, his work still influences literature, music, films and television, art and dance and opera and all kinds of creations throughout the world. Now tonight, we are indebted to the genius who was Edgar Allan Poe. First short story for tonight was initially published in the Southern Literary Messenger in 1835. Readers were horrified by the story's violence and complained to the author. Now, Poe was asked to censor a later version, but he always felt that he should be judged solely by how many copies of the work had been sold. Here now is Berenice.
Come in, Miss Carter. Just the person I wanted to see.
Sir, there's something I must tell you.
Not now, Carter. Can't you see I have something much more important to say than anything you can tell me?
Yes, sir, but...
Do not interrupt me. Now, what was I about to... yes. Misery comes in all forms, eh, Miss Carter? So how was it I was chosen to be cursed with sorrow from something so beautiful?
Sir?
Oh, come on, woman. Surely you must have some idea.
Well, you know what they say, sir. Out of joy, sorrow is born.
Oh, how true. How true. Yes, my family, Miss Carter. They're all gone, you see.
They were an old and honored family, sir.
All I've got left is this gloomy place. Filled with things, Carter. Priceless things. Italian frescoes in the main hall. Medieval tapestries in the bedrooms. Greek sculptures in the garden. Massive paintings along the staircase wall. And this library here stocked with rare books from all over the world. Do you know that I was born in this library, Miss Carter?
Yes, sir, I know.
And on that night, my mother died giving birth to me. In this very room, in this god-awful house. Isn't it a god-awful house, Miss Carter?
Well, sir,
I came into this world a motherless child, born into a fairyland, a palace of imagination, released into these halls of thought, and learning, and information. No wonder I spent my boyhood immersed in books, a world of fantasy, eh, Carter? What did I care about the outside world? My everyday existence was here, in the land of dreams.
You were an avid reader as a lad, sir.
Yes, and then my cousin, Berenice, came to live with us. And from then on, we grew up here, together. The two of us against the world, Miss Carter.
Yes, sir.
Me, I was always sickly, gloomy, like this place. Berenice was agile, graceful, overflowing with energy. I stayed here in my library while she rode the hillsides. I meditated daily, addicted to my lifestyle, body and soul, like a monk, and she wandered carelessly through life. Oh, Berenice, I can still see her now, standing before me, filled with light-heartedness and joy. A fantastic beauty, a goddess.
She was indeed beautiful, sir.
But then, why must my life be engulfed in mystery and terror, huh? It was that father of hers, Uncle Bernard, died in madness contracted from that infernal disease. I blame him. The sins of the father. Yes, Carter?
Please, sir, you mustn't get yourself worked
That
up.
filthy, sinful disease. It struck her like the plague upon his own daughter. It ate up her spirit, affecting her mind and her character. Perhaps most terribly, changed her beauty. Oh, God, it stole her identity. How could it not affect her personality? The destroyer came and went with the victim. And where was she? She was no longer Berenice, no. Do you remember how it changed her, Carter? She wasn't the same, was she? Suffering like that.
It was not her fault, sir.
And she'd rock her body back and forth, and then settle into a trance, only to arise defeated, helpless, and then hobble off. Meanwhile, my own disease began to engulf my soul. I buried myself even deeper into my library, alone. I'd lose myself for days at a time in here, staring at the way the window light might hit a certain picture, or why a particular typography was used in a book. Can you imagine that? Or I'd just watch the dancing flame of the candle in a lamp, or the dying embers in the fireplace. I'd dream away the hours, inhaling the perfume of the flower, or I'd repeat monotonously the same word over and over and over and over and over and over until the sound itself might introduce some new image in my mind.
We were all worried for you, sir.
Yes, I know. You all thought I was insane. But I was only trying to keep my mind on other things, you see. Anything to avoid the reality of what was happening to Berenice. Her condition caused me great pain, you see. And that was when I decided to turn my anguish into a more creative pursuit. I would study Berenice.
Study, sir.
Yes. Now, I don't know if I thought I could help her, but I thought I'd examine her change in personality as an intellectual project. In so doing, I'd found a new obsession, yes. I began to watch closely her descent into madness and finally into death. Does that sound unsympathetic of me, Miss Carter?
Well, sir, it's not for me to say.
Yes, I know that my aunt had hoped for some romance between Berenice and me, but truth be told, I had never loved her. Not in that way. She may have flitted about in diaphanous gowns on a beautiful summer's day, but she was not a real creature to me, you see. She was not of this earth. And on the other hand, she did love me. Oh, that's a fact, Carter, that's a fact. She told me so. And when she told me that, I shuddered and I withdrew. But I must tell you that later on I felt rather guilt-ridden about it all, and so much so that one day I did ask her to marry me. Oh, don't look so shocked, Miss Carter, please. It was a secret between the two of us. It made her happy, at least. And there, you see, I made her happy. I'm a rather nice fellow, after all. But one day, I was sitting alone here in my library, thinking of what I had gotten myself into, when suddenly I looked up and there she was, Berenice, standing right there in the doorway. Stark naked. Sir, I know, stark naked, and she said nothing. Of course, I was speechless, shocked. I mean, good God, can you imagine that, Miss Carter?
Yes, sir. Oh, well, no, sir.
But for some reason, an icy chill ran down my back. It frightened me, I tell you. I sank back into my chair. A consuming curiosity pervaded my soul. And I remained that way for some time, breathless, motionless, my eyes riveted upon her, and her body infected with disease. Oh, it was terrible to behold, and so my gaze fell upon her face, and she looked melancholic. The eyes were lifeless, dull, almost without pupils. Such a glassy stare. And those thin, shrunken lips. They parted and then smiled and... Well, there they were, Miss Carter.
What, sir?
Why, the teeth.
The teeth?
Berenice smiled and slowly her teeth came into view. And every day since, I asked God, why did you allow that to happen? I wished to death I had never seen those teeth, and in an instant, however, she was gone. Or should I say, and this was probably a product of my disordered brain, you see, her body may have been gone. Yet that smile, with its white, ghastly rows of teeth, they had not gone. Do you understand, Miss Carter? Not a speck on their surface, not a shade on their enamel, not an indenture in their edges, but in that brief moment of her smile, her teeth had branded upon my memory. And I see them now more than I saw them when I beheld them then. The teeth, Carter! They were here, and they were there, and they were everywhere right before me. Long, narrow, and excessively white, with the pale lips writhing about them.
I don't understand, sir. The teeth...
Oh, they were irresistible. And naturally, I struggled in vain to cast that image from my brain, but to no avail, you see. And from then on, I only thought about nothing else but her teeth. Teeth! I began to long for them. You see, I desired them. Nothing else mattered to me, and soon those teeth enveloped every thought, night and day. I saw them everywhere. Even in my dreams, I dwelt upon their characteristics. I concentrated on their peculiarities. I pondered on their conformation. I mused about their place in nature. And I shuddered as I assigned to them a sensitive and sentient power, even when unassisted by the lips. I could see a moral expression. I coveted them so madly. Does that sound insane, Miss Carter?
Well, I suppose one might...
Still, I knew. If only I could possess them, I could return to reason and peace of mind.
Sir, I had no idea. I felt something was wrong, but...
For days I stood locked in here, days and nights, trying to direct my mind, my thoughts to other things. And still, those teeth maintained their hold over me. That hideous image, so distinct, it floated about the shadows in my room. And if I should doze off, they broke into my dreams and I would scream out loud.
It's very late. You should get some rest, sir. You've had a very long day.
Yes. Berenice's funeral. She lies buried in her grave now. I must continue on without her, yes. Alone in my library. I'm in such a fog. I barely remembered what happened today. I do know that it was a day filled with horror, unspeakable, indefinable horror. Oh my. Wait. I hear something. There. Do you hear that, Carter?
What, sir? What do you hear?
Why, that's her departed spirit beckoning me. You don't hear it?
No, sir.
It's the shrill, piercing cries of a woman's voice ringing in my ears, reminding me that... Oh, yes. Yes, I've done some unholy thing. But for the life of me, Carter, I can't recall what it is. What did I do? What... Do you know, Miss Carter?
No, sir, but
It's a mystery to me. I've been wondering, feeling as if all this has something to do with this little wooden box right here. But where did it come from? It's very odd. What's it doing here on my desk, Carter? I I think I've seen it before.
That box. Why, it's been in your family for years, sir. It is a surgeon's toolbox. It once belonged to your great uncle Reginald. He was an army surgeon during the war. You played with it as a boy, don't you remember? It still holds the original instrument, so I believe.
But how has it come to be here, upon my desk? I didn't put it there, did I? Why would I do that? Why would I... There it is again, do you hear it? How can you not hear it, Carter? Oh, and, what are you doing here anyway, Carter? Oh, hold on, I remember that you came in here a little while ago to tell me something. No doubt. Well, what's wrong? Why do you look like that? What's worrying you, woman? Out with it!
It's true, sir. I came to tell you something important, but I do not wish to disturb you any further. I'll just leave and I will come back.
Don't be ridiculous, Carter. Tell me what you meant to tell me. I demand you to tell me.
Well, sir, one of the servants, Ivan, he discovered that the grave, your cousin Bernice's grave,
Yes?
it has been violated.
Violated?
Sir, it's too horrible to even say it. Someone has dug up her body and purposely disfigured.
No. What are you saying, Carter? What an outrageous thing to say, Miss Carter. You're lying.
No, I saw it myself, sir. There she was, poor Miss Berenice, plain as day.
What are you saying, Carter? Who would do such a thing? Are you insane? Don't be ridiculous. For a moment there, I thought I was the one going insane, but no. You take the cake, Miss Carter.
But it's true, sir. Look here. Her garments, they are all muddy and clotted with blood. Someone has done a terrible thing to her. Her face. Come, sir, come with me, please. You must see. Wait. What is this?
What is it?
It's just lying here in the shadows, sir. A shovel.
A shovel? A shovel? Well, what on earth is a... Oh, look, it's covered in mud. It's absolutely filthy. Now, what is a shovel doing in... What is it? What's a shovel? Oh, no. Miss Carter.
Sir.
Oh, now I remember. I remember what I've done. No, the box! The box!
Sir, allow me to see what is in that box.
No, stop, Miss Carter! Get your hands off it! It's mine! It's... Look out! Look what you've done, you idiot! Look what you've done!
What are those things?
Surgical instruments.
Oh, not those. Those little white things. Oh, dear Lord!
Look at them, Carter. Don't they gleam now? Sparkling white? I've cleaned the blood off of them. Every one of them.
Oh, you maniac! It was you! You did that!
Ah! Come back, Miss Carter! Why are you screaming like that, huh? Silly woman, there's nothing to be ashamed about! Can't you see? I've cleaned them. All of them. Each and every one of them. All 32. Polished them good, yes. All 32.
Written in 1849, Annabel Lee was the last poem to be penned by Edgar Allan Poe. Though it was not published until after his death that same year. Like many of his poems, it's about the death of a young, beautiful woman. And so many scholars believe that it was also about Poe's wife, Virginia, who had died 2 years earlier. Here now is Annabel Lee.
It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and to be loved by me. She was a child, and I was a child in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud by night, chilling my Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes! That was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that a wind came out of a cloud, killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those much older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And the stars never rise, but I see the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so, all the night tide, and lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the side of the sea.
Written in 1842, this next tale is one of Poe's shortest supernatural tales, but to this day, it is required reading in most elementary schools. Now, the works of artists as diverse as Oscar Wilde, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and Jean-Luc Godard have been influenced by its simple and yet haunting message. We now present The Oval Portrait.
Several years ago, my friend Peter and I had been hunting for a possible art studio in Lower Manhattan. We barely had enough money between us to pay any sort of reasonable rent for the sort of space that we had imagined. You know, something that resembled a Parisian artist studio, complete with skylight. Well, on our budget, that was not easy to find in Manhattan, so we settled for an empty warehouse down on Spring Street, near the river.
Oh my God, this place ought to be condemned.
Oh, come on, look at it as a grand adventure.
No, too grand for me.
Well, it looks like rain. We might as well stay a while and explore the place.
That landlord, he was kind of weird, no? Kind of creepy. The way he said, stay away from the top floor.
But that is where the skylight will be, if they even have one in this place.
Naturally, we're not going to stay away from the top floor.
Naturally.
Oh, wait, watch your step. My gosh, you're going to put your foot through the stairs.
Hey, where are you going to get a place this cheap in New York City?
I really don't trust this staircase right now. It's ready to cave in.
Stop whining. What do you want? A doorman building on Park Avenue? Some artist you are. So up we climbed the creaking staircase in near darkness. Oh, thank God we brought a flashlight. And finally, we were at the top floor.
Great. So now what do we do? Landlord said to stay away from here, and obviously there aren't any rooms up here he wants to rent. Maybe he stores his own stuff up here.
It doesn't look like there's been anyone up here for decades. Oh, look at all the layers of dust.
I'm telling you, this building is probably condemned, so even if we move in, we'll just have to move out in another month or so. Just you see. Oh, wait, what are you doing?
The door's stuck. Help me push. I want to see if there are any empty rooms up here with a skylight.
Even if there are, what makes you think you'll rent it to us? Fine, okay, just stand back.
Okay, it's open. Get out of the way.
Wait, don't just... Oh, of course she goes in anyway. Just wait for me.
Can you see anything?
Barely. All the windows are shuttered. It's as dark as a tomb in here.
Oh, God, stop being so dramatic. Shine your light over there. This room is still furnished. Let's look around. Look, there's an easel. And look at all the paintings.
Wow. I wonder whom these belong to. How old are they?
Oh, and there's a skylight. I knew it. Peter, this is an authentic artist studio. That's what this is. It's just what we wanted.
These paintings, they look to be pre-impressionist. Mid-1800s, I think. I wonder who did them. They're actually pretty good. But I don't see any signatures here. Maybe they're valuable? Maybe they belong to someone? Maybe it's somebody's family? Maybe it's the landlord's family? Maybe he owns this and that's why he told us to stay out of here? Which would mean, Carla, we are trespassing.
Such a baby. Sit next to me on the couch.
What, you mean this filthy thing? Oh my God, look at it. It's got rat droppings all around.
Shut up and sit down.
Well, that nearly killed me.
Shine your light over there. Look, these paintings, I can't take my eyes off of them. They're everywhere. They're so similar in style, they must be by the same artist.
Well, have you had a good look? We shouldn't be in here, okay? Let's go. Please. I said let's go, Carla.
Stay right where you are.
Oh, fine. I'm getting tired all of a sudden anyway.
Well, then take a nap.
Oh, no. Are you kidding me? I don't care if we're in the middle of downtown Manhattan, okay? This place gives me the creeps.
Nevertheless, Peter dozed off for an hour while I continued to explore. But it was difficult to see by flashlight. The skylight was so dirty it offered little light. As night approached, shadows deepened so much I began to think my eyes were playing tricks on me, especially when the beams from my flashlight fell upon one painting. It certainly stood out from the rest because it appeared to be freshly painted, not covered with years of dust. A nude portrait of a young woman. Oh, she was beautiful, mesmerizing. I was held spellbound by her gaze. Part of me wanted to wake Peter, but I couldn't turn away from her picture. And then my eyes became heavy, sleepy. I felt hypnotized by that portrait, that head, those shoulders, the arms, the bare bosom, so real. The golden hair, how radiant it seemed, the way it melted into the dark shadows. One odd thing about the picture, it was the only painting there in an oval frame. Richly gilded, highly detailed. It was a great painting. But what was it doing there? It should have been in a museum. The artist, whomever he was, had truly captured the girl's immortal beauty forever on canvas. The way she stared out at the viewer, me, it was almost as if she wasn't made of paint, but a real person in the flesh right there before me. Of course, I knew she wasn't. It was just a painting in an oval frame, but I couldn't take my eyes off her. Even now, she's still in my brain, that lifelike expression of hers. I don't think I'll ever forget it. She was there in the room with me, sharing it with me, so alive. That maiden of rare beauty, so full of happiness. And then I believe, no, I'm convinced she actually spoke to me.
Yes, full of happiness. Once. But I rue the day, the hour that I met and fell in love with and married the artist. Oh yes, he was passionate, studious, strict. But he was already married to his art, my rival. I began to hate it. I hated the palettes and the brushes, the easels and paints that occupied him day and night, the models who came and went. But then he asked to paint my portrait. Of course, I wanted that. Just think, posing for him. I'd be with my love for weeks to come, no? Little did I know. Oh, yes, he employed such enthusiasm. From hour to hour, day to day, so much passion from this wild and moody man. But not for me, for his painting of me. So much so that he failed to realize that I was ill, withering away yet still obediently posing for him. I became a mere shadow of myself, still smiling, without complaints. He was so happy, so involved in his work. How could I ruin it for him? The painting was becoming a marvelous work, a great work. He claimed it would be a symbol of his love for me. When nearing the end, however, he allowed no one to see it. He had become too immersed, too much in love with his own work. He barely ate nor slept. He did little else but paint. He rarely lifted his eyes from the canvas to even look at me. So obsessed was he repainted the portrait again and again and again, looking for his idea of perfection, what he had remembered me to be. Rosy cheeks, golden hair, and eyes that glowed. Meanwhile, my spirit within me had been waning, my health wasting away. It was as if with every stroke of that brush, he sucked the life spirit out of me, but I tried to remain his subject. But she in the portrait remained his. And when the last stroke of his brush had completed his great masterpiece, the artist, so enthralled with himself and his ability and his accomplishments, cried out with a loud voice,
"This is indeed life itself!"
But when he turned back to me, finally seeking his beloved, it was too late, you see. I was already dead.
We never did move into that place. Within a year, Peter dropped art altogether and became a stockbroker. I chose instead to move upstate to a commune in Woodstock. It was a year before I returned to New York City, and I immediately went in search of that old building on Spring Street, seeking the oval portrait. I was in for a surprise. You see, I thought I was positive of its location, but to this day, I've not found that building, nor its landlord, ever again.
The very real horror of being buried alive was common in Poe's day. So in 1844, he decided to exploit that fear by combining fictional accounts of such terrifying ordeals with a documentary approach that made them all the more real, as in Radio Theater's version of The Premature Burial.
Ladies and gentlemen, step right up, step right up. Nope, not you kid, you're too young. Now, ladies and gents, step right into that tent and you will witness before your very eyes Greta, the one, the only surviving human being who was once buried alive. Ooh, prematurely, that's right. Greta, buried alive folks. Buried alive. And she rose from the dead, not unlike Lazarus, or for that matter, our Lord and Savior. That's right, folks. You get to see the girl raised from the dead for only 1/4. That's just 2 bits to hear this living miracle tell her story herself. Now gather out. Come on now. Gather around, gather around. Not you, kid. You lost. Now, you, sir. Yeah, you. Now, you must agree that to be buried alive is beyond question the most terrifying mystery to have ever fallen upon a human being. Am I right, sir? You know I am. And it's happened a lot more frequently than you might imagine. Oh, yeah. Well, my own daddy, he always used to say that the boundaries which divide life from death, well, they are at best shadowy and vague. Shadowy and vague. Who shall say where the one ends and where the other begins? Now, you take that disease when a person, they appear to be dead, but they really ain't. Narcolepsy, that's it. That's what it's called, narcolepsy. Now, you just look it up if you don't believe me. Hey, haven't you heard of people being pronounced dead, coming back to life? Well, of course you have. Well, I was just reading a book just last week, and in it said that there had been hundreds of, well, even thousands of authenticated cases of premature death pronouncements. Now, what that means, folks, is buried alive. For instance, there was this case in, it was Baltimore, just 3 years ago. Now, the wife of one of them there eminent congressmen was seized with a sudden illness. Fell right down, and them highfalutin doctors, they didn't know what to make of it. And after much suffering, well, she died. Well, or she was supposed to have died. No, don't faint, lady, not yet anyway. Come on, it gets better. So, as the story goes, no one suspected that this here congressman's wife was not actually dead. I mean, she looked dead, and when you saw her face, it had that pinched and sunken outline. You know what I'm saying? The lips, they was all white and rigid. Eyes, they lost their shine, and her body, I tell you, it was cold as ice. No pulse. Now that sounds dead to me. How about you, sir? Well, for the next 3 days, her body was unburied, lying in state at the family home. And I know what you're going to be thinking now. Was she embalmed? No, sir. And then the funeral was held. Mourners, they came from far, they came from wide, on account of that she was that there congressman's wife. And the lady's body was deposited in her family vault, and it remained there undisturbed for 3 years. 3 years. Now, I know what you're gonna ask, but no, she did not walk out of that tomb 3 years later. Now, that would have been downright weird and supernatural. And we here, we only deal in the facts. Yes, sir, the gosh darn truth. That is that 3 years after she died, the tomb was reopened. That was, well, to allow another deceased family member, but imagine the feeling, the shock that dead woman's husband got when he playfully opened up that there door. Can you hear that? You hear that? Listen now, that's the iron door creaking open, and just then, a shrouded object falls rattling into his arm. It was the skeleton of his wife. Hey, wait a second, mister, where are you running off to now? Come on now, there's more to my story. It was only a skeleton of his wife. Come on now, calm down, everybody. Now, how'd that happen, you may ask? Well, I'm going to tell you. You see, the family doctor, he figured that 3 years earlier, she had actually revived within 2 days of her entombment. Can you hear her? Yeah? She's struggling with the coffin, causing it to fall off the ledge and onto the floor where it smashes open, allowing her to escape from it. And then she takes this wooden plank, yes sir, this one that I'm holding right here in my hand. You see it? And then she took it and broke it off of the coffin, and then she used it to strike the iron door. Oh, yes, sir. And then I suppose nobody heard her. And then in her weakened condition, she faints, so maybe she just died from sheer terror. Sheer terror, folks, yes indeed. I know that I would die of sheer terror if I was locked up in a tomb. I mean, come on now, how about you, sir? Or you, madam, I know what you're thinking now. When do we get to see Greta? You know, the Walking Dead girl? Well, for only a quarter, you can go right in there and see for yourself. Oh, no, sir. Don't you take my word for it. You listen to her true story, and you'll know what it feels like to be terrified, but you will never know what it feels like to be buried alive. Well, let's hope not, all right? Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. Now, you see, that woman whose skeleton fell into the arms of her husband when he opens the door to the tomb? Well, her shroud must have come entangled in some of that there sculpted, scrolled ironwork up on the door, you see. So she died upright, standing there as she rotted away for the next 3 years. Until her husband opens that iron door, and then, oh, wait! There goes another one. Come back, madame! No, huh? Well, we haven't entered the tent yet, but I don't blame that woman for yelling, for coming running off now. It just gives me the goosebumps just thinking about it. However, before we go to see Greta, the Walking Dead girl, I'd like to tell you another true story. My Sue Ellen, yeah, she told me this one, yeah. Now, it was about a rich lawyer fella. That's what he was, and he died mysteriously, you see? That's right, I said mysteriously. Yup. But his family, they refused an autopsy, all right? So his quickly were laid to rest there. And an hour or so later, after the corpse had been buried, one of them there numerous gangs, body snatchers they called them back then, they was all over at that time. Well, they made their way into the graveyard, you see. They dug up that lawyer and sold his body to the local medical college so they could, cut it up for educational purposes. Well, you see, the problem was the law only allowed a certain number of corpses each year for studying purposes, but it was never, ever enough for all them students and doctors. Now, while he was on the examination table, just as the doctor was about to cut there into the stomach, the body, it just starts convulsing like it, riding like a snake on a hot iron griddle, and next it just sits up. Oh, no, I'm not kidding you, folks. It's the God's honest truth. It does. And then it steps off of the table, gazing around the room for a couple of seconds, mumbles something, and then falls like a rock down on the floor. Yep. And for some moments, everyone, the doctors and the students, everybody's just paralyzed with fear and awe. What? What's that you said? Did he live? Well, as a matter of fact, he returned to his family, who was even more shocked. Why were they shocked? Well, sir, they had already divided the man's estate amongst themselves. All right, I guess we can go on all night with these similar true stories, but now it is time to meet our star attraction for all those who paid the full admission price. Full admission to hear the astonishing story from the only person in existence who have lived to tell the tale. Right this way, folks, right this way. Come on now, show your ticket, please. That's it, right through the tent over here. Hey, kid, I thought I told you to get lost. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to think how frightening it must be to suspect that a dearly departed member of your family has been prematurely buried. But how much more frightening for the buried one, Even if it is possible to escape the grave, how can one live normally after that? I ask you. I mean, just think of the torture that mind is going through, waking up in a coffin 6 feet underground, and I am talking physical torture too. Oh yes, the lungs, they're giving out, they suffocate, breathing in them stifling fumes of the damp earth. The death garments all clinging to you. Waking up to find yourself stuck in some narrow coffin. The absolute blackness. The silence. Worst yet, realizing that you are now in the presence of the conqueror worm. You try to think about the air, you try to think about the grass up above, remembering what has happened to you, but you realize soon enough that they don't know. No, they just are not gonna know. People, how can a mere human being carry such a heavy burden? Now I ask you, there's got to be nothing so agonizing in all of the earth. We cannot even dream of something half so hideous in the realms of hell itself. And so, while all these stories may seem horrifying, even fiction, folks, they are more terrible because they's true. Oh, yes, I admit, secondhand truth, but how much more terrifying such a tale of premature burial might be if it were told to you by someone who had experienced it firsthand. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Greta, the living dead girl. Now, Greta, tell us about your ordeal.
For several years, I have been subject to attacks of catalepsy.
Catalepsy! Now, even when the diagnosis of this infernal disease is correct, it causes us still a mystery, even to the greatest of all physicians.
Sometimes I lie for a day only, or even a shorter period, in a state of deep sleep. I am senseless, motionless.
The heart still pulsates, yet it is barely perceptible. There are some traces of warmth and a slight color lingers in the cheeks.
I can lie in a trance for weeks, even months. I appear to be dead. Doctors have failed to determine if I am suffering. Even I am unaware of my condition.
Now, if the victim's family and their friends are well aware of this here catalepsy when it occurs, well, then the victim is hopefully safe from that premature burial. And the signals of the sickness, now they are, luckily, quite gradual.
When I suffer a fit, I drop into a phase of false sleep. But you see, I know about my condition.
But just think about all them what don't know, who may suffer their first attack in an extreme form, and well, they's the ones who's most likely gonna be buried alive. Imagine all the hundreds, the thousands who have been buried alive, who without any apparent cause, they just sink little by little into this semi-comatose state without pain, without the ability to move.
I still know what's going on around me. I know those who surround my bed until the crisis passes. Sometimes I am hit hard by the disease. I grow sick and numb and chilly and dizzy and drop to the floor. Then for weeks all is void and black and silent. Nothing itself becomes my universe. Total annihilation.
Recovery from these seizures, it is slow.
My soul is slow in returning to me. The memory.
Yet the general health appears good.
But I have become a morbid person. I talk tirelessly of worms, of tombs and epitaphs. I am obsessed with death, and the idea of premature burial possesses me. It haunts me day and night. When I do fall asleep, I shudder to think that I might awaken to find myself buried alive in a coffin. My dreams are nightmares beyond description. I dream every night like this. My nerves are unstrung. I live in perpetual horror. I hesitate to travel far from my home. I fear of being somewhere far off, falling into one of my usual fits and being buried alive before my real condition is discovered. I wonder if even my closest friends can be trusted. Maybe one of them might even be glad to see me go. Yes, they promise me that they can be trusted. They say that the only way that I will be buried is if they leave me to lie in bed until decomposition sets in, and then they'll be sure that I'm truly dead. In the meantime, I've worked out a whole list of elaborate precautions, just in case. For instance, I had the family vault remodeled so it can be easily opened from the inside. Yes, the slightest pressure upon a long lever that extends far into the tomb will cause the iron doors to fly back. There are vents that allow air and light into the room. There's food and water. The coffin must be warm and softly padded. And most importantly, the lid must be able to be opened from within. Oh yes, and there's a large bell with a rope that extends through a hole in the coffin, which must be fastened to my hand. Just in case. You don't know what it's like to awaken from the deep sleep. The dull pain. No emotions, just confusion. No care, no hope. A ringing in the ears. Slowly the body comes back to life like tiny electric shocks tingling in the limbs. Struggling to think, to remember something. The blood flows into the head. The eyes open and terror pervades every pore. I have become cognizant of my condition. I know I'm not awakening from an ordinary night's sleep. And then the fear. The terrible fear of knowing that my catalepsy may have been mistaken for death. Am I in bed? Or in my coffin? My eyes can't focus in total darkness. The terrifying effect is devastating. But I can't scream. My lips and parched tongue move, but no voice comes forth. My lungs feel like they're filled with mortar. No wonder I can't cry. My jaws are locked wide. They're bound with cloth. Oh God, I've been prepared for burial. My hands, they're crossed on my breast. Move them, please. Please, move them. What's the thing? I can't move my arms. The walls are too close. I can't move. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm in a coffin. Ah! No matter how hard I try, I can't lift the lid that's barely 6 inches from my face. It won't budge. Okay, think good thoughts. Don't be ridiculous. I have to escape. Get out. Help! Don't use your energy. Your oxygen. Take a deep breath. What's that smell? Dirt. It smells like dirt. Nothing. I must have fallen asleep when I was out walking in the countryside. Strangers must have found me and buried me in a pauper's grave. Yes, I'm not in my metal coffin with pillows and upholstery. No, this is wood. Cheap wood, hastily made. I can smell the earth around me, buried like a dog. I'm not in my family's tomb. I'm not in my grave. Oh my God! There's no bell to warn people. The lid doesn't spring open. I can't get out. All the precautions, they were for nothing. I'm in some grave. Only God is there.
There are moments when even to the sober eye of reason, the world of our sad humanity may assume the semblance of hell. But the imagination of man knows no bounds and can be merciless. Now, at that same time, the grim reality of being buried alive cannot just be so regarded lightly. A mere phobia reserved for hypochondriacs? Then we is all hypochondriacs. But my friends, we cannot allow them to defeat us. These terrible fears must be made to sleep at times, to give us time to breathe and hope and raise our courage. These fears must sleep, or they will devour us. Well, that's it, folks. Show's over. Thank you. Please stand and file out through the tent doorway. That's it. Show's over. Come on now. Tell your friends to come in here and hear for themselves. Thank you very much for coming, folks. Hey, kid, how'd you get in here?
Now, back in Poe's time, the care of the insane was already a significant political issue in the United States. Now, people were calling for asylum reform because the mentally ill were being treated as prisoners, while increased acquittals due to the insanity defense were criticized for allowing criminals to avoid punishment. So, Poe wrote this dark comedy as a critique on the 19th century medical practices, as well as a satirical political commentary on American democracy. We now present our final tale, The System of Dr. Tar and Professor Feather.
Traveling down south, where my route led me within a few miles of St. Mary's Asylum, a private madhouse of which I had heard about from my medical friends. Now, I had never been to a madhouse, so I thought I'd stop by to take a look, and perhaps I'd write an article about it for my newspaper. The building itself was secluded, about 2 miles off of the main road, set in a dank and gloomy forest. It was an old plantation house, which looked dilapidated to me, hardly fit for tenants, much less patrons. It was rather scary, and I almost turned my car around, but I gathered up my courage, proceeded up to the gateway, where a face peered out at me between the bars.
What do you want?
Hello, I would like to see Dr. Maillard.
I am Dr. Maillard.
Well, we have a mutual friend, Doctor. I mentioned a few names until he recognized one, or pretended to, and it was only then that he allowed me in through the gate. I followed him into the house, where there was a neat parlor containing many books, drawings, pots of flowers, musical instruments. A cheerful fire blazed in the fireplace, while a young and very beautiful woman played a mournful tune on the piano. Doctor, I've heard from my medical friends that you employ a unique treatment here, the system of soothing, and that all punishments are avoided.
Yes, this is true. This is true. Now, even our patients were not confined to cells or rooms. They are allowed to roam freely, but they, of course, are watched by our staff.
I wasn't sure if the pianist was a lunatic, so I was cautious in what I said before the young lady. She nodded and smiled and appeared to be quite sane, but I know that one can never be too sure about such people.
Madam, this is my niece, a most accomplished pianist, wouldn't you say?
A niece? Oh, why, she plays marvelously.
Yes, well, I'm happy to invite young people such as yourself into our home to witness our achievements, as long as you view all of this with an open mind. Unfortunately, most people still retain a rather dim view upon our system here when it was in operation.
You mean it is no longer used?
Oh, it's been some time since we last used it. I have renounced it forever.
Is that so?
We found it absolutely necessary to return to the old methods. See, there was a danger in the soothing system. Now, its advantages, they had been very much overrated. Well, I believe that we gave it a fair trial. We did everything that rational humanity could suggest. I'm sorry that you could not have paid us a visit at an earlier period so that you might have judged for yourself. But I presume that you are aware of the details of the soothing practice?
Not altogether. I've read an article about it.
Well, simply, we human our patients. That is, we did not attempt to turn them away from any fantasies that they may have had. We indulged, we encouraged them to continue. Now, to some patients, such treatment, it seemed absurd, as if they were here to argue their case. And when they realized that they received no conflict, well, their own sense of logic, it made them come to their senses.
Really?
Yes, we had one man here who thought he was a chicken. Well, when we treated him as a chicken, feeding him corn, making him sleep out in the shed, well, he awakened one day to realize that he was indeed a man. So he was cured.
Why, that sounds remarkable.
Well, we put so much faith in amusements of a simple kind here, such as music, dancing, gymnastic exercises generally. We have cards, and certain classes of books, and so forth. Now we treated each individual as for some sort of ordinary physical disorder, and the word lunacy, it was never employed. We even appointed certain patients to watch over other patients, to give them confidence and responsibility. Now, the body and the soul, it must be treated. Now, in truth, well, it also allowed us to dispense with the expense of hired guardians.
And you utilized no punishments whatsoever?
None.
And you never confined your patient?
Oh, no, very rarely. And now and then, if someone was violent, we lock him in a cell separated from the others, right? Actually, we didn't welcome such cases, so we usually just return them to their families or to public hospitals.
But now you've changed all this for the better?
Oh, absolutely. Now, the old system had its disadvantages, even certain dangers. No, I believe that our findings have ended this treatment throughout the country.
That surprises me. I didn't know they used the soothing system elsewhere.
Oh, well, don't always put faith in what others tell you. Believe nothing that you hear and only one half of what you see. Now, after dinner, when you have sufficiently recovered from the fatigue of your journey, well, I'll be happy to show you the house and introduce you to a system which, in my opinion, and in the opinion of everyone else who's witnessed it in operation, is incomparably the most effectual as yet devised.
Your own? Is it of your own invention?
Well, I am proud to acknowledge that it is. At least in some small measure. Come this way. I'll show you the gardens and then the conservatories. Now, I cannot let you see my patients at the moment. Wouldn't want to shock you. And my dear, I do not wish to spoil your appetite for dinner.
At 6, dinner was announced, and my host conducted me into a large dining room where there were about 25 or 30 people. Apparently, some of them were high society by the way that they were dressed. Perhaps a little overdressed for such an establishment. The females were bedecked with jewelry, rings, plunging necklines, bare arms. But I noticed that some of the dresses were not well made and rather ill-fitting. And there was my aunt's niece now, dressed in high-heeled shoes, a short, tight skirt, fishnet stockings, and a long blonde wig. In fact, everyone looked rather odd, as if at a masquerade party. Perhaps the soothing system was not completely extinguished. Perhaps the good doctor did not want me to be put off from dining with the lunatics. The table was loaded with plates of delicacies. Too many meats and pastries, so much it seemed lavish and wasteful. And where was that music coming from? An old Victrola in the corner of the room. Instead of a regular evening meal, it appeared I was at a royal banquet that had suddenly gone awkward. It was truly bizarre. But the world is made up of all kinds of people, no? So who was I to judge? I took my seat and participated as best I could.
Are you having a good time, madam?
Excellent.
Yes. We once had a fella here who fancied himself a teapot. Now, that's nothing rare. Every asylum in the country has one of those. However, our gentleman, he believed himself to be made of a fine silver. So he polished himself every night.
Was he cured?
It was not long ago, we had a patient who would taken it into his head that he was a donkey. But he was a troublesome patient. We couldn't really keep him within the bounds, you understand. Yeah, he would eat nothing but thistles. So we insisted that he eat nothing else. Oh, that cured him. He did kick a lot, though.
Mr. Deacon! I will thank you kindly to behave yourself.
Now, what is wrong now, Mrs. Oliphant?
Please tell Mr. DeCock to keep his feet to himself. He has spoiled my brocade.
Lord Carlson Partons, I had no intention
of attending to good woman, I, Mr. the Cock, will do himself the honor of partaking wine with you.
Now, go sit down, Mr. DeCock. Have you had any of the veal, madam? It's quite good.
Yes, I will have some, thank you.
Well, here it comes now.
At that instant, 3 sturdy waiters deposited on the table an enormous platter containing a small calf roasted whole with an apple in its mouth.
Oh, that does look scrumptious, doesn't it? now, if you don't like that, we do have some rabbit as well. Peter, bring the rabbit and the ham. With a side of cat.
Excuse me, did you say cat?
Oh, yes, it's cooked in a special sauce. It's a local tradition.
No, thank you. I'll just have a piece of this cheese.
Oh, gee, you know, that reminds me. We did have a patient once who believed that he was a Gruyere cheese. He went about with a knife in his hand, asking his friends to try a small slice off the middle of his leg.
And what about the man who thought he was a champagne bottle? Always going around popping his cork. He's singing.
Oh, and then there was that ignoramus who mistook himself for a frog.
Which, by the way, he resembled.
Oh, I wish you could have seen him, madam. Oh, the high and holy airs that he put on. Madam, if that man was not a frog, it's a pity.
He would croak.
And then he'd put his elbows up on the table after taking a glass or two of wine, and he'd open his mouth like this, and roll up his eyes, and wink them just so you think you were in the presence of a frog. He was a genius, he was.
I have no doubt about it.
And what about the little Andrew?
Oh, now he was a pumpkin, you see. He persecuted the cook, demanding that she make him up into pies. The cook, she refused, of course, but I don't know why. It might have tasted just fine. Oh, actually, madam, you look mighty fine yourself.
Oh, very fine indeed, Mr. Loon.
Doctor, he just grabbed me.
You look delicious. Don't be frightened, my dear. Mr. Loon won't bite.
And remember Mr. Buffon? Now he was crazy. He thought he had 2 heads. A real lunatic.
Mr. DeCock, you know we don't use such language here.
He thought both heads were Greek philosophers discussing the world each day. Oh, he loved to orate. Do you know that word, madame? To orate.
Oh, I can dance if you so desire me to dance. Do you desire me to dance? Mrs. Jocelyn used to dance like a rooster. Cock-a-doodle-doo! Cock-a-doodle-doo!
Mr. DeCock, you will behave yourself. Now, if you cannot conduct yourself at the table like a gentleman...
But he was Miss...
Now, Miss Saltzman, please do not remove your clothing. Put that back on.
But isn't she your niece?
Oh, I do love a good naked romp in the light.
I do agree, you nasty witch.
You're such a cock. You get it?
Everyone sit down, please, and eat your meals. Miss Saltzman, you may stop undressing right now. Oh, never mind.
The whole place had suddenly turned into a madhouse. My own nerves were affected. Many of the patients were frightened by the few who had gone wild. I felt sorry for them, shrinking within their seats, quivering and jabbering in terror. Then, a strange loud noise. Now for a while, all was as quiet and as it was before. What on earth was that sound?
Oh, nothing. We are used to such things. We care really very little about them. See, lunatics, well, every now and then they like to get a little bit wild. Like to howl like dogs in the night. Especially when there's a full moon. You should have heard it when we had a packed house around here, but now things are so different.
Yes, so different now.
Indeed, very different.
Hold your tongues. Every one of you. Hey, turn that music off now!
So, all of these people, you conclude that they are quite harmless?
What? You think that these people are insane? Nonsense. See, they are as sane as I am. These are not patients. These people are my friends and staff.
What? All of them?
Oh, well, you think they behave a little bit odd? Is that it?
Odd? I should think so.
Well, maybe it is that you've had a little too much wine.
Doctor, if you've done away with the system of soothing, what exactly have you replaced it with?
What? Why, the system invented by Dr. Tarr, of course. You must have heard of him, no? And Professor Feather? Oh, he added a few adjustments as well.
I've never heard of them.
Well, good heavens! Do you mean to say that you have never heard of the learned Dr. Tarr and the celebrated Professor Feather?
No, I apologize. I am not so educated in this field of study, but believe me, I will seek out their writings and acquaint myself better with their works.
Well, say no more, young lady. Have another glass of brandy?
We drank along with the rest into the late hours. Everyone chatted and joked and laughed, and the music played on, and once again, the whole scene turned into a chaotic mess. We had to shout over the din. Doctor, you mentioned something before dinner about the danger incurred in the old system of soothing. Why was that?
Oh, yes. Well, there was occasionally very great danger indeed. See, there is no accounting for the caprices of madmen, and in my opinion, as well as that of Dr. Tarr and Professor Feather, it is never safe to permit them to run around at large unattended. See, a lunatic may be soothed, as it's called, for a time, but in the end, he is very apt to become hostile. Oh, see, he's cunning, too. Now, if he has a plan in mind, he can hide it by playing dumb and docile. But when a madman appears thoroughly sane, well, now it's when it's time to put him in a straitjacket.
But the danger. Have you had any terrible cases in your own experience?
Yes, of course. Right here in this house. See, the soothing system, well, it was in operation then, and the patients, they were free to roam around. They behaved remarkably well, so much so that with a keen mind, they might have sensed that something was brewing. Well, sure enough, one morning the keepers, they found themselves tied up, thrown into the cells by the lunatics who had taken over, posing as the staff.
Oh, how did that happen? What did you do?
A stupid fellow, a lunatic, had taken it into his head that he had invented a better system of government than any he ever heard of before. A lunatic government, you see? Now he wished for all to follow him to give his invention a trial. See, he wanted to make our institution great again. So he persuaded the rest of the patients to join him in a conspiracy to overthrow the reigning powers.
And he really succeeded.
Absolutely. See, the keepers were soon made to exchange places with the lunatics. The real keepers of the rules around here, well, they were not treated very well, I must say.
But I presume this situation could not have lasted very long. Visitors coming to see the establishment would have given the alarm, no?
Oh, but you're wrong there. You see, the leader, he was a little too cunning for that. He admitted no visitors at all. Well, with the exception one day of a very stupid-looking young woman, of whom he had no reason to be afraid. Oh, he let her in to see the place, just to have a little bit of fun with her. As soon as he had fooled her sufficiently, he let her out and sent her about her business.
So how long then did the patients control the place?
Oh, well, for a very long time. A month, certainly. How much longer? Well, I can't precisely say. Well, in the meantime, the lunatics, they had a jolly time of it. Oh, believe me. See, they got rid of their own little shabby clothing. They broke into the family wardrobe and jewels. And the wine cellar. Oh, they lived well, I can tell you.
And the treatment. What was the particular method of treatment which the leader put into operation?
Oh, it was a much better treatment than before. See, it was a very capital system indeed. It was simple, it was neat, there was no trouble at all. In fact, it was...
Doctor! It appears as if things are getting out of hand. The lunatics must have broken into the room. They're coming closer.
Oh, you're right, madam. Oh, they're
I listened with both ears to what was going on in the room, I came to the conclusion that it was the good Dr. Maillard who was the lunatic who had excited his fellows to rebellion. He had been merely relating his own exploits. This gentleman had indeed, some 2 or 3 years before, been the superintendent of the establishment, but grew crazy himself, and so became a patient. My friends in the medical world back home had no knowledge of this. The real keepers of the asylum had been overpowered, tarred, and then feathered, and then kept locked in the cellars underground. They had been imprisoned for over a month down there and given some bread and some water. Eventually, one escaped through a sewer and freed the rest. The soothing system, with important modifications, has been resumed at the asylum, although I have searched every library in Europe for the works of Dr. Tarr and Professor Feather, and I have, up to the present day, utterly failed in my endeavours at procuring a volume of their philosophy.
Sarah Kate Walker, Caitlin Boyle, Alejandro Cardosa, and I'm your host, Dr. Patrick Albert. And I'm temporarily at West Shipley and Mr. Dan Bianchi. Thank you so much for coming out and have a safe